Let's see how this works. Well, I could already tell that, hey everybody, I could already tell that I need to close the blinds just because the lighting is really off on this one. So, excuse me. Let's go open it first. Bam. Great. Well, thank you for joining us. Right now it is July 21st, 2020 at 6:50 p.m. in California time, so I'm in Pacific time. And this is just a good reminder that none of this is legal advice, but a lot of this will be good legal information that is generally known that I have consolidated from the internet. So tonight, one question that we've been getting asked a lot about is about the CARES Act. And, um, hello to the one viewer out there. And with more specificity, we're going to be talking about the emergency paid sick leave laws, as well as the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Act and how they were expanded. So let's check this out. Let's go, if it's between emergency EPSL, which is what we call it, or EFEMLA, Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act. Let's go over the EPSL first. So I'm going to pop onto my other computer and print that out. So we all read this back in, what's the date on this thing? We file all our documents with the dates on there, 3/19. So our offices came up with this summary on March 19th. So, gosh, when did the EPSL take place? I'm not sure. I don't even remember that far back. But very shortly towards the end of March. So let's talk about it. I'm going to read off of our summary first before I could start just discussing the things that I've been seeing around the employment law sphere, as well regarding like which types of issues I see most frequently. But yeah, let's just jump into it. So, emergency paid sick leave. The Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act is contained. So Congress passed the CARES Act, which included like 10 to 12 things, and Emergency Paid Sick Leave and Emergency Family Medical Leave Expansion Act are two of the 10 to 12 things that the CARES Act actually put forth. One interesting thing that I was reminded of today was that the EPSL, so the CARES Act, which includes the EPSL and the EFEMLA, does not apply to businesses larger than with more than 500 employees. Why that's kind of interesting is think about how many companies there are in the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area and LA. How many of those big tech companies employ more than 500 employees? Yet those companies are not subject to the same laws that companies that have fewer than 500 employees. It's like, for example, just imagine if you worked at a big Silicon Valley company and then you tested positive for coronavirus. You technically could not get emergency paid sick leave under the federal rules because that company has more than 500 employees, so they don't need to abide by this. One reason is that the big companies typically have better infrastructures to care for people who need to take extended leaves, so they have more equipment, they have more accessibility for those individuals. Another reason, if you think about it, why it only applies to small businesses, think about how much this affects a small business, where if someone tests positive for coronavirus, one of your employees, then you need to give them 2 weeks paid off, right? Just because of these new laws that apply for companies with fewer than 500 employees. So I'm not going to go through all the arguments back and forth for it, but I think one reason, and this is just my, being in law school and, staying tuned with the government and everything, is that they had to push this bill through Congress, and this was a very big bill. And one way to push it through is where they did not have big companies covered. So that's kind of interesting. But let's look at the emergency paid sick leave laws. The all right. So it's part of the CARES Act. It's covered by Congress. So it applies to you if one of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things applies. Now I said this in a TikTok video too, but you could see that number one, the employee is subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation order related to the coronavirus. The issues that we saw with that when it first came out was technically none of us are in an isolation or quarantine order back in March when we first made this summary, because they were all just stay-at-home orders or shelter-in-place orders, technically not an isolation or quarantine order. But now we see that those are both analogous because we are in a pandemic. Number two, the second reason. So I'll go over it. The first reason again was that the employee is subject to some type of quarantine or isolation order. I'm gonna say it what's written, and then I'm gonna summarize it each one. Just I like how I would talk to my friends. So number two, the employee has been advised by the healthcare provider to self-quarantine due to concerns related to the coronavirus, which means that if your doctor tells you, hey, you should self-quarantine yourself because you might be infecting other people, you get emergency paid sick leave. The third way to get emergency paid sick leave is if the employee is experiencing symptoms of coronavirus and is seeking a medical diagnosis. So what that means is, and mind you, we created this in March, but it's still actually applicable now, where you were exposed to a bunch of people who had coronavirus at some place in time. What we're looking at now is in Santa Clara County, a duty for your employer to let you know if you've been exposed to coronavirus is that you need to have been in the same area and then in that area you need to be within 6 feet of the individual who had tested positive for coronavirus, and the time period you need to be within that 6 feet distance is for 15 continuous minutes. So this is not where you're just walking into different rooms with people who have tested positive for coronavirus. You need to be working in like the same behind the desks. You need to be working behind the counters within 6 feet for 15 minutes. And once you are, spotted as being in the same area as someone who tested positive for coronavirus, then your employer needs to provide you with a separate notice. So let's go back to this one. So there's a lot of people, like if I was that guy or that woman who is within 6 feet from someone who tested positive, I would immediately get tested. I should get tested. I'm looking to get tested now. It's a very, very good thing. So the fourth thing, the fourth way for you to get emergency paid sick leave is if the employee is caring for an individual who is subject to a quarantine or isolation order or advised to self-quarantine by a healthcare provider. So what number 4 is for any employees who are subject to number 1 or number 2. Anyone who's advised number 1 or number 2. If I'm taking care of someone who needs a self-quarantine, or if I'm taking care of someone who is subject to an isolation order. So here's one thing. I just said I need to take care of someone who needs to self-quarantine. No, that is actually one of the biggest issues that we saw in the beginning of the shelter-in-place orders, is where people thought that they were at risk, or people think that their family is at risk, and then that is a legitimate reason for them to try to attempt to get emergency paid sick leave, and it's not, because what you do need is a doctor's note saying that that individual needs to be quarantined, and then you bring that doctor's note in. There's a couple HIPAA issues with that, but we're in a pandemic, so I just use the reasonable standard on some situations. The number 5, the fifth way to get emergency paid sick leave is that the employee is caring for a child whose school or care provider is closed or unavailable due to coronavirus precautions. Oh wow, there's comments in here. That's pretty sweet. It's been going on for 7 minutes. Kayla. Oh, hey Kayla. How are you? Your dance moves brought me here. Hey Allie. I didn't qualify for Emergency Pay Leave or Emergency Family Medical Leave Act. Interesting. I wonder why, but I'm going to go over the last 2 ways to qualify for the EPSL. So we're really not getting the extra $600 a week for EDD anymore. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if Congress is going to extend anything since I didn't have enough time at my job. Gotcha. Yeah, we're going to go over those requirements too. Dang it. All right, so the fifth reason you can qualify for emergency paid sick leave if you work for a covered employer and you are a covered employee. I could have said that at the beginning. Is that the employee is caring for a child whose school or care provider is closed or unavailable due to the coronavirus precautions. So you saw this happen a lot, especially in April and May, where schools were closing down. Because of the shelter-in-place orders, you were no longer allowed to have a day care provider open and open to customers as well. So if you have nowhere to care for your kids, then you can qualify for emergency paid sick leave. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Hopefully everyone's working remotely or staying as safe as possible. Obviously I'm not working remotely. I'm subject to one of these exemptions here. But yeah, hopefully these will still go on through the end of the year. So these will be available in the fall, especially if, school's down for any reason whatsoever. School, like online school. All right, so the sixth reason is the employee is experiencing any other health conditions substantially similar to the coronavirus as specified by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So if they say that coronavirus makes you grow a horn, then you can get emergency paid sick leave. So how does this work? Michael Hunt, hi, are you at the office? So those are the 6 ways where you can qualify to get emergency paid sick leave under the EPSL, right? The CARES Act. So covered employees, employers, private sector employees with fewer than 500 employees, you're covered. Government employers, you're covered. And all other non-private entity employers with more than one employee are required to provide their employees with paid sick leave. So this is every company with fewer than 500 employees. The bill entitles I forgot about this. The bill entitles employees of covered employers to paid sick leave regardless of how long the employee has worked for the employer. All right, so I think we just stumbled upon something in the summary that I forgot about. Is RENA still available? I am going to take these summaries that we created in March, and I actually did share them, but people just weren't very interested. Or, realistically, when you share things on a social media app, you really get the people who want to see that particular thing. So I guess not too many people on TikTok wanted to see a summary on the emergency paid sick leave laws, but that is something I will include here. So I will be sharing these with the class later. And I'm going to message this. Just read part of the summary. I will text her. I'm not sure if all right. So the employee is experiencing anything else. All right. It doesn't matter how long you work there for. The legislation further gives the Secretary of Labor, authority to exempt small businesses with fewer than 50 employees from the bill's paid leave requirements. Should that jeopardize the viability of their business? Excuse me. So that's good to know if you're an employer out there, because I know there are employers over here where if providing your employees with EPSL is going to jeopardize your business, then you do not need to comply, or you can apply not to comply. Hey, Raina, you're here? So we just read this summary that said the legislation, it doesn't matter how long you work there, you're still entitled to EPSL. So now that I put that in the summary, I obviously put it there for a reason. So I'm going to look this up. See paid sick leave. Duration of service requirement. Yo, so Reina, check it out. Yeah, it was right. Technically, you are qualified for EPSL. It says all employees are covered employee. Oh, excuse me. All employees of covered employers are eligible for 2 weeks of paid sick time for specified reasons related to COVID-19. Employees employed for at least 30 days are eligible for another 10 weeks of paid family medical leave to care for a child under certain circumstances related to COVID-19. So, if you're a part time employer, can we qualify for the emergency pay or FEMLA? Naomi, hey Reina, can you just like comment again just so I can know that you heard what I said? All right, Naomi, if you're a part time employer, can we qualify for the emergency pay or FEMLA? Um, I'm going to assume, even though I don't like assuming, that you mean if you're a part time employee, can you qualify for the emergency paid sick leave? And okay, cool. Thanks, Raina. Oh yeah, check that out. Um, yep, check that out. Yeah, if you work there for 30 days, then you're qualified for a bunch of other FEMA leave. So, all right, how can I apply for this then? You have to talk to your employer about that one because the employer. So this is funny. So when one of your employees goes on paid sick leave, then they actually are paid in a very beneficial way to the employer because I believe I'm not a tax attorney, but I believe that the monies paid from emergency paid sick leave to employees will be a tax credit for the end of your taxes as opposed to a tax deduction. Because in tax deductions, what happens is they take all of your expenses and then they go above a certain percentage of your AGI and then you calculate a certain percentage of that and that's what you're able to deduct with your expenses. But with tax credits, what they do is you owe X amount of dollars, then this tax credit will decrease that amount of dollars. So, or is it the top line? Oh, I don't know. I'm not a tax attorney. But, all right, is it 2 weeks max per year total per incident? All right, so check it out. Know me. If you're a part-time employee, can we qualify for the emergency pay or FEMLA? Yes, you can. I actually answered a question for a client today who was an employer because one of her employees went is taking EPSL, and this was a part-time employee. So what we said was, if it's a part-time employee, just put her on your schedule like you normally would be, and then pay her for that amount of hours that she would normally work at your business. You need to keep that separately, and if there's actually, there's some accounting things with ADP that are helpful, but I'm not going to dive into that right now. So yeah, if they work 30 hours a week, just put them on the schedule for 30 hours a week next week, theoretically, but they're not going to be working any hours, and then you pay them that 30 hours in a week, and you do that for 2 weeks. Now, here's an interesting thing: is although people are qualified for up to 80 hours or 2 weeks of EPSL, emergency paid sick leave, that doesn't mean well, if they're working full time, they're obviously entitled to all 80 hours. But if they're a part-time worker and they only work 30 hours a week, they're actually only entitled to 60 hours. But either way, that's 2 of their normally paid weeks. So that's what they're getting paid for. Yeah, tax credits are really nice for businesses that have losses, Mike. All right, 2 weeks max per year total or per incident? That's a good question. I believe it is per year. It's 2 weeks per year. Hopefully, you're not having too many incidents. If you have another incident, well, and here's the thing: if you actually contract coronavirus, you're not going to work shortly. So that's when you talk to a workers' comp attorney, especially if you contracted the disease while you were at work. So if you're using the leave to care for a child due to child care challenges, do you have to use them continuously? I am wondering if you could use 2 days per week. If I think I'll answer that 2 days per week question just by reading this a little bit. I believe it's only 2 weeks a year. So if it's only 2 days a week, still for only 2 weeks, so you only get 4 days total, I believe. At least that's part of the EPSL. But then if you qualify for the EPSL, after that's done, you might get the Emergency Family Medical Leave Act, which might give you an additional 10. But that doesn't give you 10 times 5, 50 days. That gives you 10 weeks. And I think it might be a use it or lose it type situation. Nomi, this is my second live on Facebooks. I love the Spacebooks. This is my second time using this live interface, and I'm really going off topic. So I'm confused. I filed for leave of absence with my job, and they rejected it. So they're lying, or are they unaware of these new laws? Raina, I don't know what's going on, but I could say that there's a lot of small businesses who are struggling with certain, a lot of new laws come out, and the last couple months have been really, really tough, right? Um, so it's been super busy over here because we just focus on employment law, and we do actually work as like outsourced employment attorneys for small businesses. That's like the bread and butter here, or at least for the managing partners practice. But yeah, a lot of people just don't know the laws up to date yet, and they have not yet advised with an attorney. Could be because they're sticking their head in the sand, or it's usually a lot of hardworking people who just are trying to do the best they can. But these are a lot of crazy laws that are coming in during a crazy time. But yeah, I don't think they're lying. I think they just might be unaware. I mean, I remember speaking with certain people who are watching TikToks who say that their big companies aren't following some of the new laws, or some of the laws I'm talking about. So, covered employer. So, Reina, yeah, I think they might have just been mistaken. And I think if you want that, I don't know, that'd be legal advice. Yeah, can't do that. You should speak with somebody offline. So covered employer, number 5. What's number 5? Covered employer. A covered employer is pretty much, if you're in California, a covered employer is pretty much every company that has fewer than 500 employees. And if you really want to get into it, it may include companies with greater than 500 employees, because Governor Gavin Newsom he released an executive order, or whatever he releases, that says that the EPSL and EFEMLA apply to everybody. So you can think about that a couple ways, actually. The first way you could think about it is, everyone in the state of California is covered. The second way you could think about it is, I think Congress is supposed to be passing laws, and they could pass laws pretty quickly too and make them retroactive. But did the governor? The governor just made a couple laws, or I don't know. I'll talk about that later. The governor may have applied a couple new laws that did not apply to people before. And there's 3 branches of government, if we remember that. There is the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judiciary. All 3 of those are independent branches with checks and balances. One thing that the executive branch can do is they can enforce laws. They cannot make laws. So, I don't know. Alright, would California employers have to use unused leave out upon separation. Would California employers have to pay unused EPSL or EFEMLA paid out upon separation? I do not believe so, because, well, definitely the paid sick leave, definitely not. I mean, vacation, people accrue vacation, so they could get that cashed out in the state of California. Paid sick leave, paid sick days, unless it's in your employment agreement or the handbook, you don't usually get paid your sick days off. You work for a huge corporation, Raina. Oh, you work for a huge corporation, so it may not apply for companies with more than 500 employees. Check that out. And if it does, Governor Gavin Newsom, or if it doesn't, if your company has more than 500 employees and you're in California, Governor Gavin Newsom helped us out. He just had this new this new order thing that said that these new emergency paid sick leave laws and emergency family medical leave expansion act laws just apply to every company in the state of California, regardless of how big you are. So you should still qualify for it. Governor Gavin Newsom said so. And I think that's a funny joke to end it on. It's Tuesday, and it's actually Tostada Tuesday in the Juratovac household. So I'm excited to get some al pastor, some tostada toppings on there, and I definitely have this nice habanero hot sauce that I've been enjoying lately. But I'm most excited. I've been growing this thing since the beginning of COVID. Ever since I got the big dirt from Costco, I have a bunch of jalapenos. And the jalapeno plant's actually gorgeous. There's about 20 to 30 jalapenos growing on there right now. And it grew up and then out. So it's kind of like a wall or like a blanket of jalapenos just hanging up on all the little branches. So I'm pretty excited for it. Gavin Belson from Huli, that's hilarious. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. I'll check out y'all. Oh, Taco Tuesday, there you go. I'll check all y'all out later, and yeah, there's a lot of comments here, so this is like actually doing hitting all the right triggers in my brain to hit the dopamine, you know what I mean, to get the good feelers up. So the comments always help. It's always nice when people could actually use the information. I know I said that I would create PDFs of the emergency paid sick leave and the Emergency Family Medical Leave Act summaries from March 19th, 2020. So I will do that before I leave the office, or tomorrow. And when I say tomorrow, I mean Thursday. But either way, I'll get it up there, and then I'll talk to you later. Thanks a lot. Oh, if you're on this video live now, you'll be able to choose if you want to save it or delete it. That's another thing. Should I save or delete these? I don't know. I didn't say anything crazy. Alright. Hey, thanks a lot. I appreciate y'all joining in on this live, and I can't wait to just continue discussing legal topics and different aspects of the law. I know that none of this is legal advice, but at least I feel like right now just reading one of the summaries and just reading the laws as they're written is actually very helpful, because it allows people to kind of get it explained and slowed down where it's easily digestible, because I mean, you just saw there's a bunch of weird sentences here. So thanks for tuning in. I plan on doing this very soon, and talk to you next time. Stay healthy and stay safe.